Hello viewers, I'm the creator of this channel. I write these stories myself, and for storytelling purpose, I use AI to narrate it. Let's begin.
We heard you bought a luxury villa in the Alps. We came to live with you and make peace, my daughter-in-law said at my front steps, dragging two big suitcases behind her. I didn't stop them from coming inside. But when they walked through my front door into the big room, they stopped moving. Their eyes went wide. Their mouths fell open. They just stood there like statues. I'm happy you're listening to my story. Please leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can know how many places my story reaches. I was putting fresh wildflowers in pretty jars when I heard a car coming up the road. The sound was loud and angry, like someone was in a hurry. I stopped what I was doing and listened as the car got closer and closer to my house. Nobody was supposed to visit me today. The ladies who live here with me had gone to town for their weekly meeting with a counselor, and I loved these quiet Saturday afternoons when I could arrange flowers and enjoy the clean mountain air without anyone bothering me. I'm 59 years old now, and I finally understood that sometimes being alone is really nice. The car engine got louder and louder. Through my tall windows, I saw a shiny black car driving up the bumpy road toward my house. My stomach felt tight and uncomfortable. Something about that car, the way it moved so fast like the driver owned the place, made me feel worried. I put down my flowers and smoothed out my light blue dress. It was the same dress I wore when I signed my divorce papers 15 years ago. Wearing it today felt right, like putting on armor before a fight. The car doors slammed shut with expensive-sounding bangs. Two people walked toward my front door. Their footsteps made crunching sounds on the rocks. I knew those footsteps before I saw who it was. My son Marcus walked a certain way, just like his father used to walk. Next to him I heard high heels clicking. That could only be his wife, Vanessa. My son and his wife had found where I live. The doorbell rang with a soft musical sound. It was the same gentle sound that welcomed hurt women who needed help. How strange that now it was announcing the two people I had been hiding from for 3 years. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like the lavender growing outside. I walked slowly to the door. My hand stopped on the door handle for just a second. I could pretend nobody was home. I could sneak out the back door and walk into the mountain trails until they got tired and left. But no. I was finished running away from Marcus and Vanessa. Finished being scared. Finished being the person they could be mean to whenever they wanted. I opened the door wide. "Hello, Mother," Marcus said. His voice sounded fake and sweet, the way it always did when he wanted something. He's 34 years old now and looks exactly like his father did. Tall and big, with gray eyes that never really saw me as a real person. Next to him stood Vanessa. She looked like a perfect doll with her shiny blonde hair pulled back tight and her bright red lips smiling. But her eyes were cold. "Annette," she said my name like it tasted bad in her mouth. She never called me mom or mother. From the very first day she married Marcus, she made it clear that she thought I wasn't good enough for those nice names. "We heard you bought a luxury villa in the Alps," Vanessa said, already looking past me into my house. Her eyes were checking everything out. "We came to live with you and make peace." Before I could say anything, before my brain could even understand what she just said, they started moving. Marcus picked up two huge fancy suitcases and Vanessa pushed past me into my house. Her high heels made loud clicking sounds on my wooden floors. The sound reminded me of a clock counting down to something bad. "Make peace," I said quietly, almost whispering. That was so funny it wasn't even funny. For 3 whole years I tried to make peace with them. I smiled when they made fun of my small apartment. I stayed quiet when they said my job wasn't important. I acted happy at dinner parties when Vanessa told everyone I was Marcus's mother, the one who never figured out her life. I bit my tongue and said nothing when they forgot my birthday, ignored my phone calls, and treated me like an embarrassing relative they had to be nice to sometimes. And now, right now when I finally found something good for myself, they wanted to make peace. "Don't just stand there, Mother," Marcus said, pushing his suitcases through my doorway. "Help us carry our bags. This mountain air must be making your brain slow." I stepped to the side. Not because I wanted to help them, but because I was too shocked to move or say anything. They walked through my special place like they owned it. Their expensive clothes and entitled attitudes looked so wrong here, like wolves walking into a flower garden. Marcus rolled his suitcase toward my main hall. Vanessa followed close behind him. Her sharp eyes were looking at everything, memorizing every detail. I watched them walk away. My heart was beating so hard and fast I could hear it in my ears. I wondered if this was how a deer feels right before a hunter shoots it. They reached the big open doorway that led into my main hall. This was the heart of my special place, where I spent so many hours listening to women tell their stories about surviving bad situations. Marcus stepped through first. His mouth was already opening to say something mean about my furniture or how simple everything looked. But the words died in his throat before they could come out. Vanessa was walking right behind him. She froze in the middle of taking a step. Her perfectly calm face changed for just 1 second. I saw confusion and shock in her eyes. They both stood there in the doorway like frozen statues, staring at the big wall in my main hall. The wall I had covered with photographs. Dozens and dozens of them arranged in neat rows like an art gallery. But these weren't the photos they expected to see. These weren't pictures of Marcus when he was a baby, or family vacations, or fake smiling holiday photos. These were photos of my real family. The women who came through my front door looking for safety and found a mother instead. There was Lisa, a young mom who arrived 8 months ago with nothing except the clothes she wore and a tiny baby in her arms. There was Margaret, a grandmother whose own children stole all her money until she had nothing left except bills she couldn't pay. There was Amanda, a middle school teacher whose husband controlled everything in her life for 18 years before she found the courage to escape. They were all there on my wall, laughing around my kitchen table, working together in the garden, celebrating birthdays and small victories. In every single photo I stood with them, my arm around their shoulders, my face showing real happiness. These were the faces of the family I chose. The daughters of my heart who chose me back. What Vanessa whispered. Her voice sounded tight and strange. Is this? Marcus turned around to look at me. His gray eyes were suspicious and angry. Mother, who are these people? I walked into the hall behind them. My back got straighter with each step I took. For the first time in so many years, I felt powerful and strong when they were near me. This was my space, my special place. I was surrounded by proof of the life I built without them. These are my daughters, I said clearly. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Marcus's face turned dark red. Vanessa's perfectly shaped eyebrows came together in an angry frown. Your daughters, Marcus repeated. His voice got louder with anger. What the hell does that mean? I'm your only child. I looked at him. Really looked at him. I didn't see the little boy I used to rock to sleep and take care of when he was sick. I saw a stranger who just happened to look like that little boy. A man who had never once in all his 34 years looked at me with the love I saw in the eyes of the women on my wall. You're my son, I said quietly. But you haven't been my child for a very long time. Vanessa made a sharp gasping sound. She spun around to face me. Her red lips pressed together in a tight, angry line. How dare you? She said in a hissing voice. How dare you replace your own family with these strangers? But I wasn't listening to her anymore. I was looking at my wall, at all those beautiful faces. I was remembering why I came here. Why I left behind everything familiar and comfortable to build something new. I came here to save myself. And by doing that I learned how to save other people too. Marcus and Vanessa could bring their suitcases and their demands and their toxic attitudes. They could try to take over my special place the way they took over my life for so many years. But they couldn't take away what I found here. They couldn't destroy the family I chose. The love I earned. The peace I fought so hard to build. Not anymore. Think, I said. My voice was steady and calm. We need to talk. The silence after my words was so loud it hurt my ears. Marcus stood stiff and straight in the center of my main hall. His expensive suit looked stupid and wrong next to my handmade blankets and wildflower decorations. Vanessa had positioned herself near the fireplace. One of her perfectly painted fingernails rested on the shelf like she was claiming it as hers. Talk about what exactly? Vanessa's voice cut through the quiet like broken glass. About how you've been living some fantasy life up here while completely ignoring your real family. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The same feeling I got so many times during their visits over the years. The feeling of being small and wrong and not good enough in ways I could never fix. But this time something was different. This time I was standing in my own special place. Surrounded by proof of the life I built. The love I earned. My real family, I repeated slowly. Tell me, Marcus, when was the last time you called me? Not because you needed something. Not because it was a holiday. But just because you wanted to hear my voice. Marcus's jaw got tight. I don't have time for emotional manipulation, Mother. Vanessa and I have had a difficult year. My business has been struggling and we thought it would be good for all of us to spend some time together. Struggling, said. The pieces were starting to fit together in my brain. Is that what you call it? Vanessa shot Marcus a warning look, but he was already talking. His words came tumbling out fast. The real estate market has been brutal, he said. We've had to make some changes. Sell the big house. Fire the housekeeper. It's been stressful. When we heard you bought this place, we thought the timing was perfect. Perfect timing. I almost laughed out loud. They ignored me for 3 years. Treated me like an embarrassment. Made it clear that having me in their lives was something they barely tolerated. And now when they needed something, they showed up with suitcases talking about making peace. How did you find me? Asked. Your old neighbor, Vanessa said. She sounded very satisfied with herself. Mrs. Chin. She was very chatty about your sudden good fortune. A villa in the Swiss Alps, she said. Very impressive for someone who spent her life working as a nurse. The way she said the word nurse made it sound dirty and bad. Like caring for people and healing them and helping them through scary times was something to be ashamed of. It was the same tone she always used when talking about my career, my choices, my whole life. I worked as a nurse for 37 years, I said quietly. Saved lives. I held hands with dying patients so they wouldn't be alone in their last moments. I helped bring new babies into the world. I'm proud of that work. Of course you are, Vanessa said. Her voice was dripping with fake sweetness. And now you get to play house with all these random women. How fulfilling for you. She waved her hand dismissively at the photographs covering my wall. In one frame, Lisa smiled big at the camera while holding her 8-month-old baby girl. In another frame, Margaret knelt in the garden with dirty hands and soil on her knees, but her face was bright with pride and accomplishment. Every picture told a story of healing. Of women finding their strength again after being broken by people who were supposed to love them. They're not random women, I said. My voice was getting stronger. They're survivors. They've been through hell and they're rebuilding their lives. Just like I was rebuilding mine. Was rebuilding. Marcus caught the change in my words immediately. What does that mean? I looked at him. This man who had the same blood as me but felt completely foreign and strange. I made a decision right there. They barged into my special place demanding answers. They wanted the truth. They could have it. Means I'm done rebuilding, I said. I've built something beautiful here. Something meaningful. Something that has nothing to do with either of you. Marcus's face turned bright red. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means that for 3 years I've been learning what it feels like to be appreciated. To be needed. Not for my money or my willingness to absorb abuse, but for who I am as a person. These women see me as a source of strength, wisdom and comfort. They call me when they're scared. They ask my advice when they're confused. They celebrate with me when they have good news. I turned to look at the photographs again. My heart swelled with love for every face I saw there. Lisa was 21 when she arrived here, pregnant and homeless because her parents kicked her out for refusing to marry the man who hurt her. She didn't speak English very well and she was terrified of everything and everyone. I taught her how to cook American food, helped her practice her English, held her hand during labor when her baby was born. She calls me Nana now, grandmother. Vanessa rolled her eyes dramatically. How touching. But I wasn't finished talking. Margaret's children stole her retirement money and then put her in a terrible nursing home when she couldn't pay her house bills anymore. She wanted to die when she arrived here. Now she runs our garden program and teaches the younger women about money and finances so they never have to depend on anyone the way she depended on her kids. Mother, this is all very interesting, Marcus interrupted. But I don't see what it has to do with us. We're here to reconnect as a family. Reconnect. I repeated. When were we ever connected, Marcus? Really connected. Not just sharing a last name or showing up for required holidays, but actually connected as human beings who care about each other. He opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The silence stretched between us. It was filled with the weight of all the years we spent being strangers to each other. You want to know the truth? Continued. The truth is that you and your wife have treated me like garbage for years. You've made it clear that I embarrass you, that my life is somehow not good enough, that I'm a burden you're forced to carry. And I accepted it. I told myself that family was family, that blood mattered more than how you treated me. My voice was getting louder now. 30 years of words I swallowed were finally breaking free. But these women taught me something important. They taught me that family isn't about DNA or legal paperwork. It's about love and respect and helping each other. It's about showing up for each other, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. It's about seeing the best in each other instead of always pointing out flaws and mistakes. Please, Vanessa snapped. Spare us the inspirational speech. You're living in some kind of delusion if you think these charity cases are your real family. Charity cases. The words hit me like a slap across the face. Is that what you think? That these women are somehow less valuable than you? Aren't they? He shot back. Homeless women, addicts, abuse victims. What exactly do they contribute to your life besides making you feel needed? I stared at her. This woman who married into my family and spent years slowly destroying my relationship with my son. This woman who measured human worth by bank accounts and social status. Who saw kindness as weakness and compassion as stupidity. They contribute everything, I said quietly. They contribute honesty, gratitude, love without conditions attached. They contribute their stories, their strength, their hope. They contribute the kind of family bond that can't be bought or inherited. It has to be earned through care and respect. I walked closer to the wall of photographs. My fingers touched the frame around a picture of all of us together at Christmas last year. We made dinner from scratch together, sang songs around the piano, exchanged handmade gifts we created ourselves. It was the most beautiful Christmas of my entire life. You want to know why I never told you about this place? I said, turning back to face them. Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. With judgment and disdain and complete inability to understand why anyone would choose love over luxury and money. Marcus's face was dark with anger. So what are you saying? That we're not welcome here? That you're choosing these strangers over your own son? I'm saying that you made your choice about our relationship a long time ago. You chose to see me as an obligation instead of an opportunity. You chose criticism over compassion, judgment over understanding. And now you want to walk in here because you need something and suddenly I'm supposed to forget all of that. Vanessa pushed herself away from the fireplace. Her eyes were blazing with fury. You're being ridiculous, Annette. We came here to rebuild our relationship, and you're throwing it back in our faces because of some misguided sense of martyrdom. Martyrdom. I laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You think this is martyrdom? This is liberation. For the first time in my adult life, I'm surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide them. The truth was pouring out of me now like water from a broken dam. All the years of hurt, of trying to be good enough, of accepting tiny crumbs of affection and calling it love. You want to stay here? Continued. Fine. But you need to understand what this place actually is. This isn't a luxury villa where you can hide from your problems and expect me to take care of you. This is a recovery center for women who have been abused, neglected, and abandoned by their families. I saw Marcus's face change. I saw understanding dawn in his eyes along with something that looked like horror. You don't live in a luxury villa at all, do you? He said slowly. Smiled. For the first time since they arrived, I felt completely at peace. No, Marcus, I don't. The color drained from Marcus's face so fast I thought he might fall over. Vanessa's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the shock that appeared on her face before she quickly tried to hide it. But not before I caught it. That moment of pure panic. What do you mean you don't live in a luxury villa? Marcus's voice cracked on the last word. I walked to the large windows that looked out over the valley. The afternoon sun made long shadows across the grass. From here you could see the small cabins scattered all over the property. Each one a safe place for women rebuilding their lives. I mean exactly what I said. This isn't my private house, Marcus. This is Mountain Hope Recovery Center. I started it 4 years ago with my life savings and a loan I'm still paying off every month. The silence behind me was so complete I could hear the old grandfather clock in the corner ticking. Finally Vanessa found her voice. Recovery center for what? The words came out strangled, like she already knew the answer but desperately hoped she was wrong. I turned back to face them. These two people who drove 5 hours into the mountains expecting to find luxury and comfort, only to discover they stumbled into something they couldn't understand or control. 4 women escaping domestic violence. 4 mothers who lost everything protecting their children. 4 elderly women whose own families abandoned them after stealing their bank accounts. I paused, letting each word sink in deep. 4 women like me who spent decades being told they weren't good enough, smart enough, important enough to deserve respect. Marcus sank down into one of the worn but comfortable chairs we arranged in a circle for group therapy sessions. His expensive suit looked ridiculous against the hand-knit pillows, like a snake trying to hide among flowers. But Mrs. Chen said you had money, he said weakly. She said you bought a villa. I did buy this property for $280,000. That was every single penny I saved over 37 years of nursing. Every overtime shift. Every holiday I worked instead of taking vacation. Every sacrifice I made thinking I was building something for your future. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those years I denied myself small pleasures. Told myself I was being responsible. Saving for Marcus's education. For his wedding. For the grandchildren I hope to spoil someday. Instead I finally spent that money on myself. On creating something meaningful. $280,000. Vanessa's voice was barely above a whisper. That's all. The naked disappointment in her tone might have hurt me once. Now it just confirmed everything I suspected about why they made this unexpected visit. I'm sorry to disappoint you, I said dryly. I know you were probably hoping for something a bit more substantial. Marcus's head snapped up. That's not, we didn't come here for money. But his denial was too quick and too defensive. Vanessa's face had gone pale beneath her foundation. The carefully applied blush standing out like paint on her suddenly white cheeks. Course you did, I said. For the first time in years I felt completely calm in their presence. The question is, how much trouble are you in? Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Vanessa shot him a warning look that could freeze fire, But it was too late. The truth was written all over his face. "We're not in trouble," Vanessa said quickly. "We've just been going through a rough patch. Marcus's real estate business is up and down, and we thought it would be nice to spend some time with family while things improve." Family. The word felt foreign coming from her lips. In 9 years of marriage to my son, Vanessa made it crystal clear that I was not her family. I was Marcus's unfortunate baggage. A reminder of his humble beginnings that she tolerated out of necessity. "How much do you owe?" asked directly. "Mother, that's inappropriate," Marcus started. But I cut him off. "Inappropriate? You show up at my door uninvited with enough luggage for a long stay, talking about making peace after years of treating me like an embarrassment. And you think my question is inappropriate?" I walked closer to where he sat. This man I raised, whose fevered forehead I cooled with wet cloths, whose nightmares I chased away with hugs. When did he become such a stranger? "I spent 16 years married to your father," I said quietly. "I know what desperation looks like. I know how it feels to have bill collectors calling, to lose sleep over bills you can't pay, to smile and pretend everything is fine when your world is falling apart." Marcus's face crumpled. For a moment I saw the scared little boy he used to be. $47,000, he whispered. $47,000 in what? "Credit card debt," Vanessa answered. Her voice was tight with shame. "Business loans. The business hasn't made a profit in 14 months. We've been living on credit cards, thinking things would turn around." I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. The same feeling I used to get when Marcus was little and hurt himself. The instinct to fix it, to help, to make the pain go away. But I was older now and hopefully wiser. "So you decided to come here and what? Move in with me until you got back on your feet? Live off my generosity while you figured things out?" "We thought we could help each other," Marcus said. His voice was gaining strength as he warmed to his story. "You're getting older, living alone up here in the mountains. It seemed like we could provide companionship, help with maintenance, maybe contribute to expenses." "Contribute to expenses," I repeated. "With what money?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Through the large windows I could see Margaret in the garden teaching 2 newer residents how to plant tomato seedlings. She was 67 years old. Her hair silver white in the afternoon sun. Her face lined with wrinkles earned through surviving her children's betrayal and finding joy again. "You want to know the difference between you and the women who live here?" said. My voice was soft but steady. "They're honest about their situations. They don't show up with elaborate stories about wanting to spend time together or help each other. They say, 'I have nowhere to go. I have nothing left. I need help.' They ask instead of demanding. They're grateful instead of entitled." Entitled. Vanessa's composure finally cracked. "How dare you? We're your family. Are you?" I turned to face her fully. Because family doesn't disappear for months at a time and then show up only when they need something. Family doesn't make cutting remarks about someone's career or living situation. Family doesn't treat holiday visits like required chores to be endured. "We've been busy," Marcus protested weakly. "Too busy to call. Too busy to write. Too busy to remember my birthday 4 years running. But not too busy to Google my address and drive 5 hours when you thought I might have something you could use." The truth was settling over the room like dust after an explosion. All the pretense, all the careful words about reconciliation and family bonds had crumbled away. The naked reality underneath was exposed. "You know what the saddest part is?" I continued, looking at Marcus with genuine sorrow. "For months ago, if you had called and honestly told me you were struggling, if you had asked for help instead of showing up to take it, I would have found a way." "You would have." Hope flickered in Marcus's eyes. "I would have sold my emergency bonds. I could have given you $12,000, maybe $15,000. Enough to get you stabilized while you figured out a real plan." Vanessa's sharp intake of breath told me she was doing the math. $15,000 wouldn't solve their problems, but it would have bought them time. "But you didn't ask," I said. "You assumed. You planned. You showed up here expecting to move into what you thought was my luxury villa and live off my success without ever admitting your failures or asking permission. Through the windows I watched as Lisa came out of one of the cabins with her baby daughter on her hip. She waved at Margaret in the garden and called out something that made the older woman laugh. This was what family looked like. People choosing to be there for each other. People finding joy in simple moments. People building something beautiful together despite starting with nothing. The women here work for what they receive, I said, turning back to Marcus and Vanessa. They help with cooking, cleaning, childcare. They attend counseling sessions, take life skills classes, contribute to the community however they can. Some have been here for 7 months, some for over a year. They stay as long as they need to, as long as they're working toward independence. Are you offering us the same deal? Vanessa asked. Her voice was sharp with suspicion. I studied her face. This woman who had never worked a real job in her life. Who measured her worth by her husband's income and her social circle's approval. Could she help elderly residents with bathing? Could she sit with crying women and offer comfort without judgment? Could she plant vegetables in the garden and feel pride in feeding people who had nothing? I'm offering you a choice, I said finally. You can stay here and participate in the program just like everyone else. You'll share a cabin, help with daily chores, attend group sessions about financial responsibility and healthy relationships. You'll work toward a plan for independence that doesn't involve depending on other people to solve your problems. The offer hung between us like a bridge neither of them seemed willing to cross. Marcus looked at Vanessa seeking permission or guidance. Vanessa stared at me with a mixture of horror and disbelief. Or I continued, you can leave right now. Drive back down that mountain road and figure out your own solution to your own problems. That's it. Marcus's voice cracked with anger. Those are our only options. Those are your only options here, I corrected. What you do after you leave is entirely up to you. The grandfather clock chimed 5 times, marking another hour in this day that started so peacefully. Soon the women would return from their counseling session, and we would gather in the kitchen to prepare dinner together. It was my favorite part of each day. The cooking, the laughter, the sense of belonging that came from being genuinely useful to people who appreciated my presence. Marcus and Vanessa could be part of that world if they chose it. They could learn what it meant to contribute instead of consume. To earn love instead of demanding it. To find meaning in service instead of in taking. But looking at their faces, seeing the disgust and entitlement written there as clearly as words on a page, I already knew what their choice would be. We need time to think, Vanessa said finally. Course, I replied. Take all the time you need. Just remember this is a working recovery center, not a hotel. If you stay tonight, you'll be expected to help with dinner preparation and cleanup. Breakfast is at 6:30 and everyone contributes. As if my words summoned them, the sound of car doors closing echoed across the valley. The women were returning. Their voices carried on the mountain air as they climbed out of the van that took them to town. Marcus and Vanessa both looked toward the windows, watching as 7 women of different ages made their way toward the main building. They moved like people who belonged here. Comfortable in their surroundings. At home in their sanctuary. Think carefully about your choice, I told my son and his wife. Because whatever you decide, it's going to change everything. The sound of women's voices grew louder as they got closer to the house. A chorus of conversation and laughter that had become the soundtrack of my new life. I watched Marcus and Vanessa stiffen as the group approached. Their discomfort was obvious as they realized they were about to meet the people I chose as my real family. The front door opened with a gentle squeak, followed by the familiar sounds of arrival. Shoes being removed, bags being set down, the easy chatter of people returning to a place where they belonged. Annette, Lisa's voice called out in her accented English. We brought you something from the bakery. Before I could respond, she appeared in the doorway to the main hall. Her 20-month-old daughter Elena balanced on her hip. Lisa's face glowed with the kind of happiness I rarely saw in my years with Marcus and Vanessa. The joy of someone who found safety after living in fear. She stopped suddenly when she saw my unexpected guests. Her smile faded slightly as she took in their expensive clothes and cold expressions. "Oh," she said quietly, shifting Elena to her other hip protectively. "Sorry. I didn't know you had visitors." "It's fine, sweetheart," I said, moving toward her with the kind of warmth I learned to show freely here. "Lisa, I'd like you to meet my son Marcus and his wife Vanessa. They've come for a visit." Lisa's face brightened immediately, the way it always did when she thought something good was happening for someone she cared about. "Your son, how wonderful. You must be so happy to see him." She turned to Marcus with genuine enthusiasm. "Annette talks about you sometimes. She loves you very much." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. It was true. I had mentioned Marcus a few times during those early months at Mountain Hope, sharing memories of his childhood, expressing hope that someday we might fix our relationship. Lisa didn't know about the years of coldness, the mean remarks, the casual cruelty that finally drove me away. Marcus's response was everything I feared it would be. "I'm sure she does," he said. His tone was flat and dismissive. He didn't stand up from his chair, didn't offer to shake Lisa's hand, didn't acknowledge Elena's presence at all. Instead, he looked Lisa up and down with barely hidden disgust, taking in her simple jeans and thrift store sweater, her work-worn hands, her accent. Lisa's smile disappeared. Confusion clouded her dark eyes. She was 23 years old and had seen enough cruelty in her short life to recognize it instantly. "Marcus," I said sharply. But he was already talking. "Mother's been playing house up here, I see," he said to Vanessa loud enough for Lisa to hear. Very charitable of her to take in strays. The word strays hit Lisa like a punch. I watched her face crumble. Watched her instinctively hold Elena closer to her chest. In that moment, she wasn't a strong young mother who survived assault and homelessness to build a new life for herself and her daughter. She was just a girl being reminded that some people would always see her as less than human. "How dare you?" I whispered. My voice shook with rage. But before I could say more, Margaret appeared in the doorway behind Lisa. At 67, she had survived her own children's financial abuse and abandonment. Had thought about ending her life before finding safety here. She was small in size but fierce in spirit. She took one look at Lisa's face and understood exactly what happened. "Is there a problem here?" Margaret asked. Her voice carried the authority of someone who raised 6 children and buried 3 husbands. "No problem at all," Vanessa said with fake sweetness. "We're just getting to know Annette's house guests." House guests. Another deliberate insult. Another way of reducing these women to their circumstances, rather than seeing them as the survivors they were. Lisa whispered something in Spanish and hurried from the room. Elena's confused whimpering followed them down the hall. Margaret watched them go, then turned back to us with eyes like steel. 27 years, she said in a conversational tone. "That's how long I put up with my children treating me like garbage. Making jokes about my intelligence. Rolling their eyes when I spoke. Acting like I was a burden they were forced to carry. You know what I learned during those 27 years?" She stepped fully into the room. Her small frame somehow filling the space with righteous anger. "I learned that some people are only happy when they're making someone else feel small. And I learned that the people who do that to you aren't your family, no matter what their birth certificate says." Marcus finally stood up. His face flushed with anger. "I don't know who you think you are, lady, but you have no right to lecture me about my relationship with my mother." "Don't I?" Margaret's voice was calm and conversational. "Because from where I stand it looks like you just made a sweet girl cry because you wanted to show your superiority. It looks like you walked into Annette's home and immediately started judging and dismissing the people she loves. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of son you are." "What kind of son I am?" Marcus's voice rose dangerously. "I'm the son who put up with her dramatic nonsense for years. I'm the son who included her in family events even when she embarrassed us. I'm the son who drove 5 hours to try to have a relationship with her, only to find out she's been wasting her money on charity cases instead of thinking about her own family's future. The words poured out of him like poison from an infected wound. And with each word I felt the last threads of love I held on to finally snap. Charity cases, Margaret repeated slowly. Is that what you think we are? By now the noise had drawn others. Amanda appeared next to Margaret. Her teacher instincts made her assess the situation quickly. Behind her I could see 3 other residents standing in the hallway. Their faces tight with the anxiety of women who knew what it felt like to be on the receiving end of cruelty. Let me tell you about charity cases, Amanda said. Her voice carried the authority of someone who spent 18 years educating children. Lisa speaks 4 languages and was 3 semesters away from her nursing degree when her ex-boyfriend started stalking her. She's been taking online classes while caring for her daughter and working in our garden program. Next month she starts a paid internship at the regional hospital. She gestured toward Margaret. Margaret built a successful bakery business from nothing and ran it for 12 years before her children convinced her she was too old to handle her own finances. She's been teaching our financial planning workshops and helping 4 other women start their own small businesses. Marcus and Vanessa were both staring now, clearly uncomfortable with being confronted by the reality of the women they dismissed as beneath their notice. And I, Amanda continued, spent 18 years as an award-winning middle school principal before my husband convinced me I was worthless, stupid, incapable of surviving without him. I believed him for so long that when I finally left I had no idea how to balance a checkbook or apply for a credit card. Margaret taught me. Lisa helped me practice my Spanish so I could communicate better with immigrant parents. Annette held my hand through panic attacks and reminded me every single day that I was worth saving. She took a step closer to Marcus. I was reminded that she spent decades dealing with entitled teenagers and their equally entitled parents. So when you call us charity cases, she said quietly, you're calling your mother a fool for seeing our potential when no one else would. You're dismissing not just us but her judgment, her compassion, her ability to recognize strength in broken people. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock and Elena's distant crying from somewhere down the hall. Vanessa's face had gone white beneath her makeup. Marcus looked like he was struggling to breathe. This is ridiculous, Vanessa finally burst out. We didn't come here to be lectured by a bunch of what? I asked quietly. Finish the sentence, Vanessa. A bunch of what? But she couldn't say it. Couldn't voice the ugly words that were clearly in her mind. Instead she turned on Marcus with the fury of someone whose carefully laid plans had shattered. This is your fault, she hissed at him. You said she had money. You said she was living in luxury. You made me think this would solve our problems. I thought it would, Marcus shot back. How was I supposed to know she'd lost her mind and turned into some kind of bleeding heart? Bleeding heart. The words dripped with contempt. As if compassion was a character flaw. As if choosing to help others was a sign of mental illness. I think, Margaret said in a conversational tone, that it's time for you to leave. You don't get to tell us to leave, Marcus snapped. This is my mother's house. No, I said. My voice cut through the tension like a knife. This is my house, my center, my sanctuary. And I'm telling you to leave. The words fell into the silence like stones into still water. Marcus's face went through confusion, disbelief, and finally rage. You're choosing them over me? He asked. His voice cracked with disbelief. Your own son. I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw not the child I raised but the man he chose to become. A man who could make a young mother cry for sport. A man who could walk into someone else's sanctuary and immediately start tearing it down. A man who measured his own worth by how effectively he could make others feel small. I'm choosing love over cruelty, I said simply. I'm choosing respect over entitlement. I'm choosing the family that chose me back. Marcus's face twisted. Not with sadness but with rage. Pure burning rage at being denied what he felt was rightfully his. You'll regret this, he said. His voice was low and threatening. We drove all the way up here to give you another chance, and you're throwing it away for these people. When you're old and sick and alone, don't come crying to us. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a fire that burned too long. But instead of fear, I felt something unexpected rising in my chest. Relief. The pretense was finally over. The polite fiction that we were a loving family was finally dead. I won't be alone, I said quietly. I'll never be alone again. And as if my words summoned her, I felt a small hand slip into mine. Lisa had returned. Her face still marked with tears but her chin raised with brave courage. Elena was balanced on her other hip, reaching her tiny fingers toward the colorful scarf Margaret wore around her neck. One by one the other women moved closer. Not crowding, not threatening. Just there. Present. Supportive. Ready to stand with me against whatever came next. Looking at their faces, at Lisa's determined courage, at Margaret's fierce loyalty, at Amanda's quiet strength, I realized that Marcus was wrong about one thing. This wasn't the end of my family. This was the moment it truly began. The silence that followed my words stretched like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. Marcus stood frozen in the center of my sanctuary. His face cycling through emotions I had never seen before. Shock, rage, and something that might have been fear. Vanessa clutched her designer purse like a shield, her knuckles white against the leather. Around me my chosen family waited. Lisa's small hand remained steady in mine, her presence a reminder of everything I built here. Margaret stood with her arms crossed, her weathered face set in determination. Amanda positioned herself slightly in front of the other women, her teacher instincts making her protective of those she saw as vulnerable. You can't be serious, Marcus finally whispered. His voice shook with disbelief. You're actually choosing these strangers over your own blood. Blood doesn't make family, Margaret said quietly, her words carrying the weight of 67 years of hard-won wisdom. Love does. Respect does. Being there for each other when it matters. That makes family. Marcus whirled on her, his face twisting with ugly rage. Nobody asked you, old woman. This is between me and my mother. The words hit Margaret like a slap. I saw her flinch. Saw the hurt flash across her features before she could hide it. At 67 she had been called worse things by her own children. But it still cut deep. That was the moment something inside me finally broke. Not shattered. That had happened years ago, slowly, piece by piece, with each dismissive comment and cruel slight. This was different. This was the clean, sharp break of a chain that had bound me for too long. Get out, I said. My voice was deadly calm. Marcus blinked. What? I said get out. Right now. Both of you. Mother, you can't be. Can and I am. I stepped forward, still holding Lisa's hand, drawing strength from her presence. You have exactly 3 minutes to gather your belongings and leave my property. Vanessa finally found her voice, though it came out shrill and desperate. You're making a huge mistake, Annette. We came here to help you, to be a family. And you're throwing it away for these people who are just using you. Using me. I almost laughed. Lisa gets up at 4:30 every morning to help prepare breakfast for everyone. She's learned to preserve vegetables from our garden so we have food through the winter. She reads to the elderly woman in cabin 4 who has trouble seeing. How exactly is she using me? She's homeless, Vanessa shot back. She has nowhere else to go. Of course she's going to act grateful and helpful. What choice does she have? Lisa's grip tightened on my hand. But when I looked at her I saw not hurt but pity. Pity for a woman who couldn't understand that gratitude could be genuine. That help could be offered without expecting repayment. You're right, Lisa said quietly. Her accent making her words sound like music after Vanessa's harsh tones. I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. But Annette didn't just give me a place to sleep. She gave me hope. She saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She shifted Elena to her other hip. The little girl happily playing with her mother's necklace. Before I came here I thought I was broken and used up. That man made me believe I was nothing. But Annette told me every day that I was strong. That I was worthy of love. That I had a future. She helped me see that what happened to me didn't define me. Lisa's voice grew stronger as she spoke. The tremor of old fear replaced by quiet confidence. Next month I start working at the hospital full-time. In 3 years I finish my nursing degree. In 6 years I want to open my own clinic in an underserved community, helping other women like me. None of that would be possible without Annette believing in me first. She looked directly at Marcus. Her dark eyes fearless. So yes, I needed her help. But she needed mine too. She needed to remember what it felt like to be appreciated. To be valued for who she is instead of what she can provide. We saved each other. The truth of her words rang through the room like church bells. This was what Vanessa and Marcus couldn't understand. That real relationships were built on mutual respect. On each person giving what they could when they could. That's very touching, Vanessa said. Her voice dripping with sarcasm. But we're still family. That has to count for something. Does it? I looked at Marcus. This man I carried in my body. Nursed at my breast. Rocked through countless sleepless nights. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you remembered my birthday? When was the last time you said you loved me and meant it? Marcus's mouth opened and closed without sound. The questions hung in the air like accusations. Each one backed by years of neglect and indifference. We've been busy, he finally managed. Busy. I tasted the word, bitter as medicine. Too busy to call but not too busy to drive here when you thought I had money. Too busy to visit but not too busy to insult the people I love the moment you met them. Amanda stepped forward. Her voice gentle but firm. Annette, you don't owe them explanations. Some people only understand love as a transaction. What can you do for me? What can you give me? How can you make my life easier? When you stop being useful they stop caring. That's not true, Marcus protested. But his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Amanda's teacher instincts kicked in. The same tone she used to guide reluctant students toward difficult truths. When's the last time you asked about her interests, her health, her happiness? When's the last time you offered to help her with something instead of expecting her to help you? The questions came like arrows finding their target. Marcus's face flushed red then drained to pale. Beside him Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. Her carefully applied makeup beginning to smudge under the stress. We didn't know she needed help, Vanessa said weakly. She always seemed so independent. I was independent because I had to be, I said. My voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. Because no one else was going to take care of me. But independence doesn't mean you don't need love, support, companionship. Just means you've learned to live without them. Margaret made a soft sound of understanding. She knew exactly what I meant. The bone-deep loneliness of being strong because you had no other choice. We could learn, Marcus said suddenly, desperately. We could do better. We could. But his words trailed off as he looked around the room, taking in the evidence of the life I built without him. The photos of women who called me mother not out of obligation but out of love. The comfortable furniture worn smooth by countless conversations and shared meals. The peace that filled every corner of this place like a prayer. He saw it finally. He saw what he lost through his own choices, the relief of finally letting go of something that had been poisoning me for years. Lisa's arm slipped around my waist. Margaret moved to my other side, her weathered hand patting my shoulder with gentle comfort. Amanda began gathering the scattered pillows that had been knocked around during the confrontation, restoring order to our sanctuary. "It hurts now," Margaret said quietly, her voice full of understanding. "But it gets better. The peace that comes after you stop trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it freely. That peace is worth everything." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Outside, the sun was beginning to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. It was going to be a beautiful evening, and for the first time in years I was going to enjoy it without waiting for the phone to ring, without wondering when the next crisis would need my attention, without the constant low-level anxiety that came from trying to maintain relationships with people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. "Dinner?" Amanda asked gently. "Dinner," I agreed, wiping my eyes. "Let's make something special tonight. We have something to celebrate." As we moved toward the kitchen together, my chosen family surrounding me with warmth and acceptance, I realized Marcus had been wrong about one thing. These women weren't going to leave me with nothing. They had already given me everything. 3 years have passed since that afternoon when Marcus and Vanessa drove away from my sanctuary, their expensive car disappearing down the mountain road like a bad dream fading in daylight. I'm 62 now, my hair more silver than brown, my hands bearing the honest calluses of someone who works with soil and purpose rather than sitting behind a desk managing other people's money. This morning, like every morning for the past 1095 days, I woke to the sound of laughter floating through my bedroom window. Lisa was in the garden with Elena, now a chattering 4-year-old who speaks 4 languages and calls me Nana with the easy affection of a child who has never known anything but love. I walked to the kitchen in my slippers and robe, breathing in the familiar scent of coffee and fresh bread that always fills our mornings. Amanda was already there, of course, her teacher's habit of early rising never broken even after leaving her job. She had become our unofficial coordinator, her gift for organization keeping our growing community running smoothly. "Morning," she said, handing me a steaming mug without being asked. "Sleep well." Like a baby, I replied, and meant it. The insomnia that plagued me for decades, the anxious tossing and turning that came from constantly worrying about other people's approval, had vanished the day I stopped caring whether Marcus would ever love me the way I deserved. Through the kitchen window I could see the changes that 3 years brought to Mountain Hope. We expanded from 7 cabins to 15, each one home to women rebuilding their lives after escaping toxic situations. The garden that started as Margaret's small herb plot now covered 3 acres, providing fresh vegetables for our table and surplus for the local farmers market. Margaret herself had become something of a local legend, her financial planning workshops now attended by women from 5 counties. At 70, she moved through our community like a wise general, organizing and teaching and nurturing with the fierce efficiency of someone who found her calling late in life. "Any word from the state inspector?" I asked Amanda, settling at the kitchen table with my coffee. "She'll be here Tuesday for the final review," Amanda replied, unable to hide her excitement. "If we pass, and we will, Mountain Hope officially becomes a licensed residential facility. That means state funding, insurance reimbursements, the ability to help 3 times as many women." The achievement felt surreal. When I first bought this property with my life savings, I had no grand plan beyond creating a place where broken women could heal. Now we were on the verge of becoming an official part of the state's network of domestic violence resources, with a waiting list that stretched for months. "Lisa's been accepted to the advanced nursing program," Amanda added. Her pride was evident. "Full scholarship plus they're letting her continue working at the hospital part-time." Smiled, warmth spreading through my chest like sunshine. Lisa had been my first success story. The terrified 21-year-old who arrived with nothing but a baby and a broken spirit. Now she was 24, confident and capable, planning to specialize in trauma-informed care for assault survivors. She would change lives the way her own life had been changed. The front door opened with its familiar squeak, followed by the sound of footsteps and Margaret's voice calling out, "Annette, you have a visitor." I frowned, checking the kitchen clock. 7 in the morning was unusually early for visitors, and we weren't expecting any new residents until Thursday. "I'll be right there," I called back, quickly braiding my hair and pulling on a cardigan. Amanda followed me to the main hall where Margaret stood near the entrance wearing an expression I couldn't quite read. Standing beside her was a young woman, maybe 27, with dark hair and nervous eyes. She clutched a small overnight bag in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. "This is Rachel," Margaret said gently. "She says someone told her about us. Recommended she come here." Rachel looked up at me with the hollow-eyed desperation I had seen so many times over the past 3 years. Whatever her story was, it had left her worn thin and fragile as old paper. "Who recommended us?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle. Rachel's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment. Then she held out the folded paper with shaking hands. "This woman at the emergency room," she said. "She said you might be able to help me." I took the paper and unfolded it, recognizing the letterhead of Regional Medical Center downtown. At the bottom in careful handwriting was a note. "For Rachel, please contact Mountain Hope Recovery Center. Tell them Nurse Lisa Martinez sent you. They saved my life. They can save yours too." Oh, my breath caught in my throat. Nurse Lisa Martinez. Lisa had finished her advanced degree 8 months ago and was working in the hospital emergency room while studying for her specialist certification. She was using her position to help other women the way she had been helped, creating a network of healing that stretched far beyond our mountain sanctuary. "Nurse Martinez," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Yes, we know her well, Rachel. Welcome to Mountain Hope." The relief that flooded the young woman's face was worth every sleepless night, every dollar spent, every moment of doubt I endured building this place. As Amanda led Rachel toward the intake office, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen and felt my heart skip a beat. Marcus. For 3 years he had respected my demand for no contact. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. Nothing but blessed silence that allowed me to heal and grow without the constant drain of his negativity. I hesitated, then opened the message. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know something. Vanessa and I are divorced. I've been in therapy for 8 months trying to understand why everything in my life keeps falling apart. Think I finally do. I was wrong about everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for you to take me back. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I threw away. Hope you're happy. I hope you found the family you deserved." I stared at the message for a long time, reading it over and over. Part of me, the part that spent 34 years loving a son who couldn't love me back, wanted to respond immediately, to reach out and try to rebuild what we lost. But the wiser part of me, the part that had been nurtured and strengthened by 3 years of genuine love and appreciation, knew better. Some relationships couldn't be rebuilt. Some damage went too deep to repair. Marcus's recognition of his mistakes was a step toward his own healing. But it didn't erase the years of pain he caused. It didn't create an obligation for me to let him hurt me again. I deleted the message without responding. "Everything okay?" Amanda asked, returning from getting Rachel settled. "Everything's perfect," I said, and meant it completely. Later that morning I stood in the garden with Elena, teaching her to identify the different herbs by smell while Lisa worked nearby, her stethoscope visible in the pocket of her scrubs. She was between shifts at the hospital, using her break to help with the greenhouse project. "Nana," Elena said suddenly, tugging on my hand. "Why do the sad ladies come here? Out of the mouths of children." I knelt down to her level, studying her serious little face. At 4 she was already remarkably perceptive, having grown up surrounded by women who were healing from pain. Because sometimes, I said carefully, people get hurt by other people who are supposed to love them. And when that happens, they need a safe place to remember how strong they are. Elena nodded seriously as if this made perfect sense to her. Like when I fall down and Mama kisses it better. Exactly like that, I said. My throat tight with emotion. Except sometimes the hurt is on the inside, so it takes longer to heal. But you help them, Elena said with the absolute confidence of a child who had never known anything but security and love. We help each other, I corrected gently. That's what family does. As if summoned by the word family, Margaret appeared around the corner of the greenhouse, her arms full of fresh lettuce for lunch. Behind her came Rachel, looking less hollow-eyed already after just a few hours in our sanctuary. Lunch in 15 minutes, Margaret announced. Rachel's going to help me make stew. I watched them head toward the kitchen together. This 70-year-old woman who survived financial abuse from her own children, now mentoring a young woman just beginning her journey to freedom. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Broken people helping other broken people. Creating something whole and healthy from their shared pain. That afternoon, as I often did when the daily work was finished, I climbed the hill behind our main building to the small bench that overlooked the entire property. From here I could see all 15 cabins. The expanded garden. The workshop where women learn job skills. The playground where children like Elena could be children without fear. It was a far cry from the luxury villa Marcus and Vanessa expected to find. There was no marble, no designer furniture, no expensive art. But there was something more valuable than any of those things. The kind of deep soul-level peace that came from living according to your values. From being useful to people who genuinely appreciated your presence. My phone buzzed again. For a moment my chest tightened, thinking it might be another message from Marcus. But this one was from an unknown number. Mrs. Annette, this is Jennifer Brooks. Nurse Martinez gave me your information. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services and I have a mother and 3 young children who need immediate placement. Is there any way? I smiled, already mentally rearranging sleeping assignments to make room for 4 more people who needed sanctuary. This was how it worked now. One success story leading to another. One healed woman reaching back to help the next one. An ever-expanding network of healing and hope. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, I remained on my bench, listening to the sounds of my chosen family preparing dinner together. Laughter drifted from the kitchen windows along with the clatter of dishes and the hum of easy conversation. Marcus had been wrong about so many things. But perhaps most wrong about this. These women hadn't used me and moved on. They had stayed in their way. Even those who graduated from our program and moved into independent lives maintained connections, sending photos and updates, bringing their children for visits, contributing to our community in whatever ways they could. Lisa would finish her specialist degree and likely move away to start her clinic. But she would always be my daughter in the ways that mattered. Margaret would age and eventually need care herself. But she would do it surrounded by the love she earned through service. Amanda would continue teaching and guiding, sharing her wisdom with each new group of women who needed to learn that they were worth saving. And I would continue to be exactly what I had always been meant to be. Not just a mother but a nurturer. Not just a provider but a protector. Not just someone who gave love but someone who received it in return. The mountain air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of wood smoke from our fireplace and the last flowers of the season. As I finally rose from my bench to rejoin my family for dinner, I realized that Marcus had been right about one thing. I had found the family I deserved. And they had found me. Now I'm curious about you who are listening to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below. And meanwhile I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the end.